Okay, let's go. Learn some Torah. Parshas V'Eschanan. V'Eschanan el Hashem b'Eisahi Lemor. Moshe Rabbeinu says, I daven to Hashem on that day. What day is that day? And what did Moshe daven for? Moshe davened. He wanted to go into Eretz Yisrael. Right? Well, I'm not sure what time of day it was, but the Or HaChaim HaKadosh says as follows. He says there are 4 things you need to put together a successful tefillah. 4 ingredients to a good davening. The first one he says is you should daven mitoch shivron leiv. Shivron leiv means from a broken heart. That means you should daven with your heart, heartfelt. And it says V'Eschanan. V'Eschanan means Moshe asked Hashem for chen, for mercy. The next one it says Sheis Palel. You should do it be in midas harachamim. So it says El Hashem. Hashem is midas harachamim. The third one is you have to do it at a good time, Eis Rotzon, a time when Hashem is open to your tefillos. And that's what it says, Bo'esahi, that time, that moment.
Net.
No, in this case, it was right after Hashem forgave the last 15,000 of the people who sinned by the Chet HaMaraglim. So Moshe saw that Hashem was in a forgiving mood. That's why Aaron never davened. Aaron never saw that. He died earlier. And lame more. Your tefillah should be in a clear language. In Moshe's case, it was Hebrew. Other people daven in English, something that you understand. So the pasuk was Chanan el Hashem bo'esahi lemor. The Or HaChaim says these are the ingredients to a successful tefillah. You know, you're davening with a broken heart, you're davening to Hashem, you're davening at a good time, an Eis Rotzon, a time when Hashem is open to your davenings. You know, the Gemara says that the seal, Chos Moshe HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what's HaKadosh Baruch Hu's seal? Emet, truth. And if you look at a seal, you know, when you stamp it, it comes out clear. But if you look at the seal itself, it's backwards. You know, everything on the seal is backwards. So when you stamp it down like this, it comes out in the right way. So he says that in life, very often you look at what's happening, it looks backwards to you. You don't understand it. But you trust that when it's stamped, it will come out clear, come out right. Now, there are certain things that are known to be truthful. Emes. Hashem is emes. Give me something else that's emes. Moshe emes. The Torah also emes. So if you look at the word emes, right, emet, aleph, mem, tov, stands for aleph is Elokim, mem stands for Moshe, and the tov stands for Torah. So the word emet is also the Roshei Tevos of the 3 items that are emet. Elokim was Hashem, Moshe, and Torah. So that comes out to be very, very interesting. There's a famous Pnei Yoshua over here. The Pnei Yoshua says that Moshe davened 515 tefillot. The numerical value, the gematria, the word tefillah is 515. He started his speech on, you know, from when Tu B'Av came, that's when they realized that they were forgiven, until Zayin Adar. If you count davening 3 times every day, you exclude Shabbos because you don't daven for your needs on Shabbos, it equals 515. So he didn't daven in one time 515 tefillos. Every day he davened 3 times a day. Believe it or not, it equals 515 times. If you think about that, in a course of an average year, there's 365 days. You daven 3 times a day. Some days you daven 4 times because you have Musaf. On Yom Kippur you have 5. A person davens over 1,000 tefillos every year. You know? So if a guy is 45 years old, he's probably davened over 40,000 tefillos in his life. It's a lot of davening. You know, you don't realize it between minchas and marivs and stuff like that, but it's a lot of davening that could take place. A lot of things that could take place. So there are a lot of davenings. Now, the Sifri says there are 10 terms of tefillah. There's 10 different ways to use the word daven. Okay? Do you know some of them? What would you say some of the... Vaetchanan is one of them. Give me some of the terms of tefillah. Ba'akosha, well, I don't know if that made the list over here. Well, those are different words, but not in the Torah. Let's go. The first one is to cry out, zi'iko. It says, Vayhi bayomim R.Rabbi Mohem, was in those days, Vayomos melech Mitzrayim, V'anachu b'nei Yisrael min ha'avoda, Vayiz'aku. They cried out. The Jewish people cried out to Hashem from all the hard work. So one is litzok, to cry. The other one is shav'o, vata'al shav'osom. Their prayers went up. Their frustration. Na'ako, vayishma Elokim es na'akosom. Hashem heard their prayers. Rino, it says lishmoa el horina ve'el hatfilah. Rina is like a song. Pikio, it says vayifka b'mokom. Right? He came to the place, Yaakov, and he davened. Right? Vayifka. Nofo, vayesnapel lifnei Hashem karishon. And Moshe says, I fell in front of God like I did before. Palul, v'espalel el Hashem, tefillah. Atiro, it says, Vayetar Yitzchak l'nochach ishto. Yitzchak davened to Hashem facing his wife. Vayetar. Chilui, you daven because you're so sick with pain. Vayechal Moshe, after the chait of the Egel. Vayechal Moshe. Chanun, vas Chanun el Hashem. And then it says Sicho, like talking. It says Vayetze Yitzchak. Yitzchak went out lo suach basodeh, to talk in the field. And what tefillah was he? He was comprising mincha. The word says mincha is one of the most powerful tefillos. Eliyahu Hanavi was answered at mincha time.
Yes.
So even though
mincha is more powerful than shacharit.
It's hard to tell you what's more or what's less. It's just that mincha is a small tefillah. Don't think it's insignificant. It's significant. A lot of people were answered mincha time. A lot of women daven mincha. They don't have time to daven shacharit, let's say, because they're busy with the children, getting everybody off to school, and they're going off to work. But a lot of women take upon themselves to daven mincha. You should just be aware of that. Just one of the things that often comes. The Mira Mashkiach, Rav Yerucham Levovitz, he says that sometimes tefillah can be looked upon, or life can be looked upon like a storm. Have you ever noticed this clouds gather, and it looks the sky gets dark and a storm is coming, right? It pours, rain pours. But rain is often a symbol of bracha, because everybody needs rain for for everything to grow. So he says sometimes the bracha comes in a storm. The clouds look dark, life looks bleak, things look difficult. You're not sure, right? Life is miserable. I don't know if I will go that far, but that's okay. But that's okay. You have the emunah bitachon that whatever comes, there is light at the end of the tunnel. We say, the gishmei bracha, the rain comes, right? That comes afterwards. So that's things that are often part of it. Let's go a little bit further over here. In Vaetchanan, you have so many different things. Of course, you have the Aseres Hadibros, and you have Shema Yisrael and everything else. Vaetchanan is one of the more beautiful parshios. But look what it says over here. We have in Parshas Vaetchanan, Perek Daled, before the Aseres Hadibros, Perek Daled, Posuk Mem Daled. It says, it goes to Moshe separated 3 cities, right? The 3 Orei Miklot. Then it says, right after that, V'zos ha-Torah asher som Moshe Lifnei b'nei Yisrael. When do you say that? When we do Hagba. You do Hagba before Kriyas HaTorah, we do Hagba after Kriyas HaTorah. But we say, V'zos HaTorah. So Rav Palm once said that here you have the cities of refuge, the Ir Miklat. A person commits a crime. He commits murder accidentally, accidental death, homicide, accidental. He runs to the Ir Miklat. The Ir Miklat protects him. Today we don't have the Ir Miklat. What is supposed to protect us? The Torah. So he says, it's so interesting, Moshe separates 3 cities, and the very next pasuk is, and oh, by the way, today we don't have those cities. Don't worry. V'zos ha-Torah asher sam Moshe lifnei b'nei Yisrael. That means the cities of refuge that are there to protect you, the Ir Miklat, to protect you. Today we have the Torah. You know, the Gemara says that if the Yetzer Hara is getting the better of you, just schlep him into the Beis Medrash. If you schlep him into the Beis Medrash, things will get better. Look at, it says over here, Rak hishomer lecha, be very cautious, ushmor nafshecha ma'od, and watch over your neshama, pen tishkach es hadvorim, lest you forget the words of the Torah. Now you have to remember, in the days of Moshe Rabbeinu, or the days of Yehoshua, when you walked into a person's house, did they have a bookcase in the living room?
No.
There were no bookcases.
Baal Peh.
Everything was Baal Peh. They didn't have books.
Yeah.
Nothing. So, a farmer, what did the farmer know? How much of Torah did he know? How much of Navi did he know? Some of the Navi wasn't even written yet. It wasn't even, the books of Malachim Aleph and Beis were not written in the days of Yehoshua. And the Torah Shebaal Peh was just that, was Torah Shebaal Peh. So the Gemara says as follows. It's in Pirkei Avos as well, but the Gemara says as follows. Kol hashochea dover echo mishnaso. If a person forgets one thing from his learning, ma'alo alov hakoso ki'ilu mischayev b'nafsho. You're guilty of a death sentence.
Well, that time?
So if you don't remember everything I said last week, that's it, man. It's all over.
That's it.
Shenemar rak hishomer lecha v'hishomer nafshecha ma'od. And then the Gemara Menachos brings down Omar Reish Lakish, Kol ha-mishkach dover echa mitalmud. If a person gets one thing from his learning, over belav, it's a lav. Shenemar hishomer lecha, the same pasuk. So Reb Chaim Volozhin, who started the yeshiva in Volozhin, he says that was only the previous generations, because everything was by heart. So if you forgot something, it was serious, because if you forgot it, you forgot it. Today, we have books. In his days, he had books, he had Sforim. So if you forget something, you can always look it up. So today, if you don't remember what I said last week, right, you still have a chance to survive. Not by much, but you have a chance to survive. In the olden days, to forget something would mean to forget the effects of the Mesorah, the traditions. Forgetfulness, it was a tragedy. Now it's no longer a tragedy. That's why there were so many machlokas in the Gemara. They had different Mesorahs. Moshe taught it one way, but everybody had a little bit of a different Mesorah. And that's why you have Ashkenaz and Sfard. You have different Mesorahs. It doesn't make one right or one wrong. It's just that these are, that's why minhagim have a certain power to it. Right.
Leniency sounds strict.
Or that minhagim during the first Beit HaMikdash, where it was everything the same.
Yeah, most of the writing only began after the second Beit HaMikdash by Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, who started to write Mishnah. And then it came the Gemara, Talmud Bavli, Talmud Yerushalmi. It says, and we read this on Tisha B'Av, Kisolid bonim u'bnei bonim, when you have children and grandchildren, v'nashatem ba'aretz, and you establish yourself in the land, v'hishchatem v'asitem pesel temunas kol, you start doing destructive behavior, you start making idols, v'asitem hara b'nei Hashem elokecha l'hachiso, you do things that are evil in the eyes of Hashem to make Him angry. Ha'idosi b'chem hayom, Hashem says, I'm going to call the heavens and the earth, and you're going to be thrown out of Eretz Yisrael. So they bring down a famous mashal, a famous example, a well-known example. He says there was a father who was looking for a nice yeshiva bacher for his daughter. But what did he want? He wanted a yeshiva bacher who would sit and learn Torah. He wanted a guy that would be learning kollel. So he went to the best yeshivas, and he found a wonderful kollel guy, and they made the shidduch, and he married the daughter. Now the fact is, this guy was a faker. He had no interest of sitting and learning his whole life. He was a faker. What did he do? He would pretend to learn till he and his wife, who had been married for a couple of years, had 2, 3, 4 children. Then he figured after he had 4 children, he could go tell his father-in-law the truth. He says, I'm going into the business world, I'm not going to sit and learn anymore. What is he going to do? Throw me out? We have 4 children. Which father is going to want his daughter to get divorced when they have 4 children? Who's going to take care of the children? Who's going to raise the children? Who's going to pay for their tuitions? So he had a plan. That was his plan. So the Torah says over here, Kisoli bonim ubnei bonim. Hashem saying to you, you're going to have children, you're going to have grandchildren. You're going to move into Eretz Yisrael. You're going to have children and grandchildren, great-grandchildren. You're going to think Hashem's going to throw us out. We've been here for 100 years. We have families here. I have 50 grandchildren here. I can now start doing Averos. Hashem won't bother me. Hashem says, don't make that mistake. If you mess up, I will throw you out. It's not that I'm throwing you out, it's that Eretz Yisrael cannot tolerate it, cannot accept you. It's just the nature of Eretz Yisrael. So that's the famous Moshe. What?
In today's world.
In today's world.
People are coming from Israel, even observing they come to live in America. Is it normal? Is it the country?
Everything today is normal and everything today is crazy.
I mean, that Israel was thrown, that means the land of Israel was thrown out the people?
I don't think the land of Israel is throwing anybody out. I think people leave.
They're looking for better life.
One is the neshama, one is the goof. Then it says, "Ubikashtem mishamas Hashem elokecha." You'll search out for Hashem, your God, in singular form. Umotzosa, and you'll find Him. Ki yichadshenu b'chol levav v'chol nafshecha. When you search with all your heart and soul. So it says, "Ubikashtem," plural. Many of you are going to look for Hashem. Few of you are going to find Hashem. So the Vilna Gaon brings down the famous Gemara. It's a Gemara in Rosh Hashanah. The Gemara in Rosh Hashanah says you have 2 people that commit the same crime. They go to court, they get the same sentence, death. One is hung, and the other is not. One is saved, the other is not. Why is one answered and the other is not answered? Because one davened a tefillah with his whole heart and soul, and the other person didn't daven with their whole heart and soul. So, tefillah shalema, and that's what it says. Ubikashtem yishamas Hashem elokecha. Many of you look for Hashem, but you should just know there's only some of you that find God. The reason is because it depends how you look. He brings down, one of the Meforshim say, you see many Rishonim, many evil people, very successful.
Yes.
He says, you know why? Because they're sincere. they're bad with sincerity. It's amazing how much you can accomplish with sincerity. Even if you're bad with sincerity, somehow that sincerity makes life easier for you. Correct. Makes life easier for you. So, it's just an amazing thing what it can do. Now, in Vaetchanan, you have some very, very famous psukim. It says, "Ushmartem va'asisem," you should keep the Torah. Kihi chochmaschem ubinaschem le'enei ha'amim. It's what makes you respected in the eyes of the nation. That means the non-Jewish world, why do they respect the Talmidei Chachamim? Because they believe that the Talmidei Chachamim have a certain wisdom, a certain knowledge. What's that wisdom, that knowledge? It's the Torah they learned. Asher yishma'u kol hachukim ha'ela, they have copies of the Bible. They have copies of the Old Testament. And they read all these halachos that they don't keep at all. And they say, Rak am chacham v'novon hagoy hagadol hazeh. The Jews must be very smart, because they keep everything the Torah says. That means they must understand what we don't understand. That means non-Jews don't keep kosher, even though it talks about it in the Torah. They don't keep Shemitah, even though it talks about it in the Torah. Kimi goy gadol. Who could be a nation so great? Asher lo elokim karov imelo, where Hashem is so close to you. Okay? So they bring down many, many stories. Here's a story, I'll give you an example. They bring down many stories that over the years, in the Arab markets and in the Arab countries, whenever there was a case that the courts couldn't understand or the king didn't want to judge, who did they often consult? The Chachamim. He says in Tunis, there were two Arab farmers who shared a field with a common border, 2 fields. And here was a row of trees. And the trees was the boundary between the 2 borders. This farmer goes away on a trip. When he comes back, he notices that the row of trees are now all the way over here. So he screams and yells. He says, you moved the trees and you stole my land. Of course, this guy says, what are you talking about? I moved trees. You can't move trees. I dug up trees. How do you dig up trees?
You
know?
can't.
What?
You can't dig up trees.
You can't dig up
Grown
trees.
trees, you can't.
You can't. Some trees you can't. He says, I didn't do it. So they went to court, the local judge. The local judge didn't know how to decide who was right and who was wrong, so he sent the case to a higher ranking judge. He didn't want to touch the case. It ended up by the king. Well, the king wasn't interested in hearing the case, so he sent it to Rabbi Yitzchak Tayyib, one of the great rabbis of Tunis. I guess one of the Sephardi Chachamim. So after listening to their claims, Rabbi Tayyib asked the Arab of this, the farmer of this land, do you own a mule, a donkey? He says, sure I do. He said, well, I want to go out to your land. I want you to bring your mule. And he gives the mule a slap, and the mule starts running, and the mule runs up to this point and stops.
No.
So he says, Yod Ashor Koneh v'chamor evus ba'alav. Mules have a sense. They know what belongs and what doesn't belong to you. If he stopped here, he asked the workers to take shovels and dig down. And they dug down like 10 feet and they found roots of trees. So he says he replanted trees over here. Here was the original place because the roots were there. It's proof that he stole it. And they all respected him and everything else. So he says, we see from here, Kihi chochmaschem ubinaschem leinei amim. There are many stories. There are many, many stories where local courts referred cases to rabbanim, to different people, in order to accomplish what needed to be accomplished. Local people did that. I once told you the story of, in the Arab world, if you get angry, you can simply say to your wife, I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you, and she's divorced. And then when you change your mind, you can take her back. But if you do it 3 times, the law is you cannot take your wife back until she marries somebody else, and then you can take her back. This is opposite the Torah. See, the Torah says that if 2 people get divorced, you can always take your wife back as long as she hasn't married somebody else. Okay? Which, by the way, is a little bit more complicated because we had with Yocheved that Amram divorced Yocheved, and of course Yocheved married somebody else and had Eldad and Medad, and then came back to Amram and they had Moshe. But that was before the Torah was given. But technically, once 2 people that get divorced, they can always get remarried, unless you're a Kohen. If you're a Kohen, you don't have that option. But if you're not a Kohen, you can always take your wife back. However, in the Arab world, it's just the opposite. So here was a guy, he was eating a piece of cake, had a dessert, he wanted a glass of tea. I once told you this. So he screamed and yelled to his wife, bring me a glass of tea. and she was busy, and she didn't bring the glass of tea right away. So then he said those faithful words. He says, if I finish this cake, and that glass of tea is not here, you're out of here, you're divorced. I have nothing to do with you. And he finished a piece of cake, and there was no glass of tea. So that's it, she's divorced. But this was the third time he had done that. So according to the Arab rules, and I looked it up, by the way, I went online, I looked it up, it's brought down, it is true, that he was sorry that he said what he said. He wanted to take her back. But the law is you can't take her back. She has to get married to somebody else. And that person has to divorce. So if she gets married to somebody else, and that person is very happy with her, she may never come back to him. So he just lost his wife. He just lost his wife. He was very sad. Go figure it out, but he was very sad. So nobody could help him, but he went to the local, this was in Baghdad or somewhere like that, he went to the local Chacham, your local Orthodox Sephardi rabbi, and he cried to him what his dilemma was. So the Sephardi rabbi said to him, I have a question to ask you. Was the piece of cake a sponge cake, or was like a brownie cake, a hard cake? Thick piece of cake. He says it was a thick piece of cake. He says, good. Go back home. If you look on the table or on the floor, you'll find crumbs. If you find crumbs, it means you didn't finish the cake. Make sure your wife brings you the tea before you finish the crumbs. And then she's not divorced because you didn't finish the cake. And he said, oh, you're a genius, you're a genius, you're a genius. Of course, he went, oh, there are crumbs all over the place. Because he ate like most men eat, makes crumbs everywhere, And she brought him the tea, so he was not divorced. She brought the tea before he finished the cake, because crumbs are still crumbs. So there are ways to accomplish so much. I had a case this week. I had a bunch of cases this week. There was no end of cases. But I had a case this week of a lady. She was married 10 months. That's all. But in those 10 months, they had a kid. She and her husband had a baby girl. And for 12 years, she was an aguna.
She was what?
An aguna. He wouldn't give her a get. Okay, she was married 10 months, and for 12 years, she didn't get a get. Now, he, of course, pointed out that when they were getting divorced, he said to her, if you want a get, I'll give you a get. And they made an appointment, I guess, or they called a local based in, because they didn't live in New York, and the cost was $300. He didn't have $300, he was broke. So he said to her, she came from a wealthy family, that she would have to pay for the get to $300. And she said, no, I'm not paying for the get for $300. I don't need your get. And as a consequence, she didn't need the get. 12 years later, she's begging for the get, of course, and he said, I offered it to you. All it cost you was $300 back then. And you said, no, what do you want from me? When I wanted, you didn't want. Now you want. I'm not interested.
Now we wait.
Not interested.
What?
What?
She has to wait another 12 years.
Yes. So at any rate, the beis din that sent him the hazmonos put him in cherem. It's called the siruv. If you don't respond back to the beis din after 3 warnings, the beis din issues a siruv. What does the siruv mean? The siruv means, number 1, you're in cherem.
What is
Part of the
You can't be part of the shul. You can't be part of the minyan.
yeah.
Well, this guy I don't think is religious really or frum. So I'm not part of the minyan. I don't go to minyan anyway.
I don't pray anyway.
I don't pray anyway. So what do you want from me? And it allows her then to go to court. Well, what's she going to go to court for? The court can't give her a get. So the siruv doesn't accomplish much. You can publicize his name, you can put his name in the Jewish press, but it's not going to really accomplish much. She's stuck. Anyway, his attorney said, we're not going to go to your beis din anyway. He says, we're going to go to a different beis din. So they said, okay, great. Which beis din do you want to go to? Bryks. Thank you very much. I need this like a hole in the head. Got it. So I speak to the guy. And the guy says to me, I'll give her a get. but I want, at first it was $150,000, I want $75,000. Her family's very rich. Give me $75,000, I'll give her a get. Okay. I spoke to some different rabbis. They all said to me, have her pay the $75,000. She can afford it, let her pay the $75,000. I wasn't thrilled with that because I am of the opinion that we don't give in to terrorism and we don't buy divorces and we don't do blackmail. You know, it's a small opinion that I have, you know. That's just an opinion. What?
Why he's asking for the money?
Why not? I had a person ask for $1 million once.
Nothing wrong with that.
Why not?
People will ask. You
Why
want
not?
to give?
You want something from me, you'll pay me.
Depends.
You don't want to pay me, you won't get it. How badly do you want it?
If you want to get married, she gonna pay.
That's
That's
right. You want to, she's young, you want to get married and have children that are not mamzerim, I'll do it. Price tag is $75,000. Okay? So I said to him that I really can't go with that. That's not my philosophy. But this was my thought. But if you can show damages, if you believe that her actions damaged you, that I can look at. I'll give you an example. Let's say we are in a machloket, and you go to court, and you don't go to Bet Din. And because you went to court, I had to hire a lawyer, and I paid $10,000 to that lawyer. I can take you to Bet Din. And I could say, by going to court, I had to spend $10,000 on a lawyer, which I shouldn't have had to, because you should have gone to Bet Din. You damaged me $10,000, and I'll win the case. The halacha is, the Bet Din will force you to pay me $10,000. So there's damages. So he says, yeah, I got damages. You know, she was very wealthy. At the time of the divorce, she hired the best lawyers. I had no money. I couldn't afford a lawyer. So therefore, she won the house, she won this, she won that, she won everything. I was disadvantaged. He had a whole list of claims that he believed equal, let's say, $75,000. So that I can deal with. Claims I can deal with. So I contacted the other Beis Din. Will the woman be willing to come? Not for a din Torah. Let's sit around the table and discuss his claims. And they said yes. So at least I got them in the room together. First time they're in the room together for 12 years. Got them in the room together. He came with his lawyer, she came with her lawyer, the other Bet Din sent representation, she came with a rabbi, there was other people there. There was a whole room, 12 people in the room, whatever it was, 10 people, whatever, how many people there were, 6 people in the room. There was a whole group of people in the room. And he, wrote up all his claims, and of course she answered back, answers back to all his claims. In the discussions back and forth, he said, and you know what's the worst thing? The worst insult? In 12 years, I haven't seen my daughter. That means, when you left, how old was your daughter? 3 months old. You haven't seen your daughter in 12 years? Not once. So I asked her, he hasn't seen the daughter in 12 years? She says, if you wanted to see the daughter, he could have gone to court and asked the judge. Of course, she lived in a different town, he lives in New York, how am I going to do it? I don't have money, you have the lawyers, I don't have lawyers. Didn't see my kid. One time he went to see the kid, and the nanny took the kid out for a walk, I didn't even see the kid. So after that, I said, I'm not going anymore. So I asked her, what does this kid think about her father? She doesn't talk about him at all. She doesn't even know his name. Doesn't even know his name, he's not around. She must realize, all her friends have fathers and mothers. What did she think? Well, my father, the grandfather, takes her everywhere and buys her everything. So she has grandparents and she has me. She doesn't think about her father at all. Okay. So then I asked the father the famous question the Kohen asks at a Pidyon Haben. What's more important for you? The money or the child? That's what the Kohen asks. What does every father answer?
Child.
The child. Have you ever had a father say, you know what, Mr. Cohen, keep the kid, I'll keep my money? You never have anybody say that, right?
No.
Nobody ever does that. They always say it's the kid. So here you have a room full of people, and you ask this guy, what's more important, the money or the kid? So what do you think his answer was? The kid, right? Great. So forget about the money. Let's talk about the kid. We're going to try to arrange visitation with the child. Now, she had told me that she would give him $25,000 at some point. She was willing to give up to $25,000. I had that in the back of my mind. So she said right away, no. He just can't walk in. After, she's 13 years old, never saw her father in his life. What's he supposed to do? Just walk in and say, "Hi, Daddy's home." Doesn't work that way.
She's gonna depress.
She's gonna be. Who knows what's gonna happen? So we have to have a family therapist who logically has to evaluate the man to make sure he's stable, and the mother, and the child. You have to do it right. 100%. He didn't agree right away, but 100%. Well, who's going to pay for that? So she says, I'll pay for it. Okay, we'll put the money in escrow, $7,500. Now, he has to be able to travel to that town. He has no money. How's he going to travel? We'll put another $2,500 for traveling. And then, if he has visitation, he has to be able to travel to see the kid. We'll put another $2,500 for visitation. And then when he gets there, he's going to have to be able to take the kid out for a pizza or whatever. We'll put another $2,500 in. So now we're up to $15,000. Nothing going to him. It's all going to the escrow account. Then he wanted some more money, wanted another $20,000 to hire an attorney in case she doesn't listen. We're not going to pay for her his attorney because then they'll fight forever. We put in another $10,000 for expenses for the child, and God willing, when she gets married, he can contribute towards the wedding. So in the end, all the money will go for the family and for the child. So what did the guy walk away with?
25.
He walked away with nothing, just a little bit here and there. And she, had she spent the $300 12 years ago, would have saved the $25,000. All of this was worked out. The lawyers wrote it all up, had to sign it, I notarized it. Now comes the final thing. The deal that everybody agreed to, he gets to see his child, they're going to have therapy, they're going to have reunification. The condition is, one condition, he has to give the get today. Well, it was already 5:30, and he said, I'm busy, I can't give the get. So I said, there's no problem. There's a document called Kisvu Tenu. You read it out loud, and the sofer listens over the phone, and the witnesses, and you just sign the bottom, and we witness it, and then they can take that document to the Beit Din, and they can write the get. You can go home. You don't have to be there. And I happen to have the document right here. So we filled out the document. It was on the computer. We filled out the document. He signed it, and at 7 o'clock she got her get after 12 years.
Long process.
And it was 5 hours or a good 4 hours of negotiations. But the way you do it is you have to have a goal, and you don't have to win every war. You have to just win the final battle. You don't have to win the small battles. But it was maneuvering. So 12 years of this machloket came to an end. So that was a successful day. My wife said I could get supper that night. I was able to get some supper that night. Then I went to another case. But it's just what it is. Kihi chochmaschem ubinaschem le'enei ha'amim. The Torah itself is the chochmah of the nations. Because you see, the Gemara says, chochmah b'goyim tamim. You have many smart non-Jewish people, but Torah b'goyim, they don't have Torah. Torah is a different study. We'll talk about that more next week, but you don't have that. Okay, look at a little bit further. Perek Dalet, back again, more to the beginning. It says, V'atu Yisrael, and now all you, the Jewish people, listen to the chukim and the mishpatim to inherit the land. Then it says, Lo tosifu ala davar asher anochi mitzaveh eschem. Don't add anything to what the Torah says, and don't take away. Now, if you would have been instructing the Jewish people, what do you think was more common? To add more mitzvos or take away mitzvos? Take away. So it says, don't add, don't take away. I would have put first, don't take away. Right? So it's interesting. Rav David Feinstein says, by adding to the Torah, you're actually taking away. You know why? Because you're saying the Torah is not perfect. You see, if I add mitzvahs to the Torah, he says what I'm really doing is I'm taking away from the Torah. Okay, so that's a problem. So now, what does it mean, don't add and don't take away? So look what Rashi says. Rashi has to explain what it means, don't add. It's not what everybody thinks. He says, for example, don't put 5 parshios in your tefillin. How many parshios do we have in our tefillin? 4. Don't put 5. Don't put 5 minim on your lulav. Don't put 5 tzitzis on the corners of your baguette. Only put 4. Okay? Because you might think the more, the merrier. Okay? But we don't do that. It raises questions because a lot of Hasidim, they put, instead of 2 or 3 hadassim, they put 12 hadassim or 15 hadassim. They put more hadassim on the lulav. That's a different discussion, and they have their different minhagim. But he says, number one, the first thing is you don't add. You don't add by doing more. And then don't take away. Don't do less. Conservative and Reform Judaism, they believe the solution is make the Torah easier to keep. Remove certain restrictions. Why can't we drink any wine? Why can't we eat any cheese? Why can't we buy bread from a non-Jewish bakery? They look to make life easier. So that takes away from the Torah because, they can just change the rules any way they like. The truth is, the Chachamim did do these things. For example, the Torah says Malchus is 40 lashes, but they only give 39. Okay, so they give 1 less. Because there are Yud Gimel Midos that the Torah is Nidreshes Bo. They pour water on Sukkot. They have a pruzbul that Shemitah doesn't take away the loans. They have Heter Iskos. There are many mitzvos, the Rabbanon. There are many rabbinic mitzvos. But they learn them out from psukim in the Torah. So there's a big difference when the Bet Din or the Sanhedrin apply certain principles that Moshe Rabbeinu taught them to interpret the Torah. That's different than simply taking a pen or an eraser and saying, this mitzvah is too hard, we're just going to get rid of it. It doesn't work that way. Rav Moshe Sternbuch says that sometimes you think what you're doing is a sign of disrespect. Baal Peor, they were disrespectful to it, thinking, I'm being disrespectful to the idol. The truth is, that's how you worship the idol, by being disrespectful. So people thinking they were being disrespectful were actually falling into the trap. So therefore you have to be very, very careful. Zimri wanted to make all the daughters of Moab permitted. He would argue with Moshe, you married a Midianite woman, why can't we marry a Midianite woman? Making them all Jewish and thinking they're wonderful just doesn't build the Torah, it creates catastrophe. So the halacha, don't add and don't subtract, is a very, very important halacha because it's fundamental to what it means to be a Torah Jew. You just have to know that the Chachamim have their own certain way. Just like Sfardim have different minhagim where they have slichot, from all of Elul, or they don't have only the week that Tisha B'Av falls out on. Ashkenazim have different minhagim. You can have many different minhagim, but they're based on something. They're not just arbitrary that some rabbi got up and says, I'm going to get rid of all the Torah. It doesn't work that way. Now, it brings down as follows. We talk about the Torah itself, and the simple answer is, the non-Jewish world, Moshe translated the Torah to 70 languages. So, the non-Jewish world also had the Torah. They understood the Torah. Today you can buy the Old Testament in English, Russian, any language you want. So what's the difference between the way we understand the Torah and the way a non-Jew understands the Torah? What? The interpretation, the Chazal. That means they don't have the Gemara. They have the Torah, but they don't have Torah Shebaal Peh. The truth is today, with Art Scroll, they might be able to learn
Jastro's dictionary.
Joshua's dictionary, but they would need a Rebbe. You know, it's not so simple to do.
Yeah, so what was it?
You know, it says that you should put signs between your eyes. How would they know what tefillin looks like, or the parshios of tefillin, or that they have to be square and black? Or lo savashel gedi b'chalei vimo, don't cook a goat in its mother's milk, and that 3 times means you can't cook it, you can have pleasure from it. It involves milk and meat, and what milk and what meat, and what's cooking and what's not cooking, and soaking is like cooking, and broiling is different than cooking, and pots and pans and fleishiks and milchiks. I mean, there's a whole Gemara chulin on that. They'll never figure that out. Unless you are raised with it and you're taught it from beginning to end. Ksatam al mezuzos beisecha v'isharecha. Many non-Jews buy mezuzot, and they hang them up. I don't know if they hang them up the right way or not, but let's say they do hang it up the right way.
Good luck.
What?
Good luck.
Good luck.
Yeah.
They believe it is.
What's inside?
Right? They believe it. Sometimes they buy the boxes without anything inside. Sometimes they buy things with inside. But you're right. But do they put it up straight? Depends if they're Sephardi or not. Sephardi non-Jews. They come from Spain, they put it up straight because that's what they saw. If they're Ashkenazi, they put it up a little bit sideways. But they have no clue what's in there, what's written, and what happens. They just saw, growing up in a box in the Jewish neighbors' houses.
Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, he gave it to the
Yes.
the mezuzah.
Right. He gave a mezuzah to, I guess, I don't know if it was to Antoninus or to
Antoninus, right.
one of them. And at first, he thought you're making fun of me. I gave you all these riches, and you give me this little piece of paper. And what are you making a joke out of me? You're making and he explained to him what it was and how it protected him and protected the household. Right? So that's what the Gemara says. Chochma bagoyim tami. You can believe there's chochma bagoyim. There's no question about that. But Torah bagoyim al tami. But there's no Torah. But there is Torah. They do have Bibles. They do have versions of the Torah. But the answer is they have a Bible without the instructions. It's like buying any type of mechanic or trying to build IKEA furniture without the instruction book. You might be able to do it, but the chances are you're not going to be able to do it. It's not going to happen. So therefore, it's a little bit more difficult. He brings down here, I once wrote this down from Rabbi Lamb. Rabbi Lamb was telling a story once that I guess when he was younger, in his youth, hard to believe, he misbehaved in school, and I guess he received a slight slap from his Rebbe. Now he has to be very careful, because today if a Rebbe gives a kid a potch, that's it, the Rebbe's fired, you hit my baby, you hit my poor little kid, But I guess when he was going to school 20 or 30 or 40 years ago, if he misbehaved, he received a slight slap from his Rebbe. And then his Rebbe said to him, don't go home and say, I slapped you. Because I learned by Reb Aaron Kotler. And Reb Aaron Kotler learned in Navardik by Reb Simcha Zissel of Kelm. And Reb Simcha Zissel learned by Reb Yisrael Salanter. And Reb Yisrael Salanter learned by the Chassam Sofer. And the Chassam Sofer learned by Reb Chaim Volozhin. And Reb Chaim Volozhin learned by the Vilna Gaon. So when I gave you that potch, it was the Vilna Gaon that gave you the potch.
Not me.
It wasn't me. It came from the Vilna Gaon.
That's it. Go find out.
It means that we believe that a Rebbe has a Mesorah. And, when a Rebbe comes in, he's teaching you the Torah, that I, for example, I learned by Reb Dov Schwartzman, who learned by Reb Aaron Kotler, I learned by Rav Ruderman, who learned from the Alta from Kelma, from Navardik. You go back hundreds of years, there's a whole line of great people who the Torah was handed down generation to generation. He says all of that is, your Rebbe represents all of that. So when you're disrespectful, you're not just disrespectful to me, you were disrespectful to Rabbi Kiva Eger, to the Chassam Sofer, to the Vilna Gaon. This poor kid is now destroyed. He'll never open up his mouth again, but that's really what it is. It comes from the Mesorah. That seems to be what? Right. There's the old question they ask, we daven for Mashiach, but someone says, if in the Chofetz Chaim, you haven't got plenty of time, look at the time. We're going to be here forever.
15 minutes.
Another 5 minutes. It says that when the Chofetz Chaim, a person says, how can we bring Mashiach? If the Chofetz Chaim couldn't bring Mashiach, how could we bring Mashiach? Rabbi Akiva Eiger couldn't bring Mashiach. If, for example, just for discussion purposes, if Rabbi Yehuda Anasi couldn't bring Mashiach, Rabbi Akiva tried to think Bar Kochba was Mashiach, couldn't bring Mashiach, how could we bring Mashiach? So there's the famous story of a child who's, there's a parade, and the child can't see the parade. So what does the father do? He puts the child on his shoulders. Now he can see the parade. He says, you're right. Every generation is on the shoulders of the previous generation. If we can keep going higher and higher and higher, one day we'll see the parade. One day we'll see Mashiach. So, it's the whole argument that maybe the Chofetz Chaim couldn't bring him, but the Chofetz Chaim brought us closer. So now we're much closer than we were 50 years ago or 100 years ago. Now if we have a chance, we'll be able to get closer, closer, and closer. There's the famous, the Dobbin Magid. He was a student of the Vilna Gaon in the 1700s. And he used to bring down stories. The Dobbin Magid was called Misholim. You know what a mashal is? A mashal is a parable, a story. So he says, don't add and don't take away from the Torah. So he had a famous example of what that was. And then maybe with this we'll end. What was the famous example? He says there were two neighbors. And they were good friends, they were neighbors. And one neighbor says to his friend, he said, I'm making a party tonight. And I don't have enough silverware. Could I borrow 15 spoons from you? He says, well, I have very fancy silverware. I have 15 silver spoons. He says, don't worry, I'll be responsible, I'll take care of it. And he lends him 15 spoons. And the next day, after the party is over, he returns 20 silver spoons. So the neighbor says, I only lent you 15. How come you returned 20? He says, you didn't know? While they were sitting in the drawer, they had 5 babies. They had 5 babies. So Mazel Tov, now you have 20 spoons.
Oh.
Okay, sounds great.
Next time I get it.
Next week, he says, can I borrow the candelabra? I'm having a party, I need fancy candelabra. He gives him 2 silver candelabras, thinking, I'll get 4 back, it'll be great. A day or 2 passes, he doesn't return the candelabra. Comes to them, he says, where are my candelabra? He says, I got bad news. They died. He said, what do you mean they died? They can't die. So he said, and silver spoons can have babies. If they can have babies, they can die. So he says that was the Dobbin Magid's famous example, called Mosif Goreya. If you start adding things that don't make sense, the next thing you do is you take away, and it also doesn't make sense. Nothing makes sense. He says, if you play with the Torah, that's what happens to it. You undermine everything. So, sometimes it's more important to know what's right than what's wrong. I once gave you the example, and this,